Well, morning everyone, or afternoon. How are you all doing? Um, and did any of you make any Celtic knotworks last week at all? I hope you enjoyed it if you did. You'll see this week I'm back in my clerical collar. Well, you won't because you can't actually see it. My beard's got so long in lockdown, but my collar is on underneath there if I just about lift my head up. Things are changing a little bit. It means we're able to, as the clergy, go out and do some more visits and to see some people in their homes now. And I know that your school is preparing busily so that more of you can come back into school as well. This week we're going to be celebrating St Alban. The diocese, the group of churches, sort of the 200 churches which are grouped together to make up what's called a diocese, where you have a bishop at the head. Our diocese is the Diocese of St Albans. We're based at the Abbey in St Albans, and Alban himself was the first English saint. And so I thought today I'd tell the story about St Alban. I'll tell the story using the puppets which they have normally on the St Albans Day pilgrimage. And there are at the Abbey some resources this year for things to do, making a rose and some rose colouring sheets, because the story tells how where Alban was killed, a rose bush grew up on Holywell Hill. And if any of you know St Albans, that's where the Abbey is, and it's famous for the Alban rose on that hill. So this is how the story goes. The story of Alban is a remarkable one. It not only takes us back to the beginning of the Christian faith in Britain and to a time when religious freedom was forbidden, but it's also an astonishing account of standing up for what you believe in. This is Alban. You can recognise him by that blue cloak and the yellow band on it. And if you've ever been to St Albans Abbey, you'll see their flag is that same colours. Alban lived in the early 3rd century, so that's 1,700 years ago, and he lived in the Roman city of Verulamium, just down the hill from where the cathedral stands today. You might have been to the Roman Museum or to the park in Verulamium. One day, Alban gave shelter to a stranger who was fleeing for his life. The stranger was a Christian priest. His name was Amphibolus. While sheltering the priest, Alban was inspired by how important faith was to the priest, and he asked to be taught more about Christianity. It wasn't long until the Roman authorities caught up with Amphibolus. However, Alban's newfound faith wouldn't allow him to let the authorities arrest the priest. Instead, Alban exchanged clothes with Amphibolus and was arrested, allowing the priest to escape. Alban refused to renounce his beliefs. Famously, he said, "I am called Alban, and I worship and adore the true and living God." The magistrates ordered that he should receive the punishment intended for the escaped priest. Upon this ruling, Alban was led out to Verulamium and up the hillside where he was beheaded. Alban is honoured as the first British saint, and his grave on this hillside quickly became a place of pilgrimage, and it's where St Albans Abbey is now. It's an extraordinary man doing an extraordinary thing, and his story continues to inspire people today. I don't know whether you've ever visited the Abbey and the amazing church which is there. There are a couple other parts to the story. One is supposedly that as he was executed, a fountain came out of the ground, and that's why it's called Holy Well Hill, a well of water coming up, the living water which came rushing out. Another thing is that a rose grew there, and that's why we've got this activity, if you want it, to colour in roses, or a thing of how to make your own rose. And one of the other strange parts on it is supposedly the soldier who executed Alban. his eyes popped out of his head. And so if you ever go to the St Albans pilgrimage on years when it's happening, you'll see people carrying great big eyeballs along with them. A little bit gory, isn't it? But, you know, it's fun, isn't it, as part of the story. There's another part of the story which no one apart from me thinks happened. And so this is made up by me totally, but I like it. You see, from St Albans across to the other side of the country, over Gloucester Way in the country, is a famous road, the Icknield Way. You've heard of that, haven't you? Yeah, because the Icknield Way runs through Tring, so it comes from St Albans to Tring. And I think that if Amphibolus had to run away for his life, there's a good chance he'd have got onto a Roman road and gone as far as he could in a day. And that makes me think that maybe on the first Christian saint, the day afterwards, maybe the priest who inspired him ended up in Tring. And just maybe the reason why we've got church in Tring is because of Amphibolus. Absolutely no evidence about that whatsoever, but I like to believe it because it makes Tring seem even more special than we know it is already, don't we? So I don't know what you make of the story of St Alban. It's the story of an ordinary man doing an extraordinary thing. It's a story which has endured and continues to inspire today. It's a story which is about standing up for what you believe in. This week we've had another amazing story about someone standing up for what they believe in. Marcus Rashford, the footballer. He used to, when he was at school, he came from a family which needed support, and so he used to have free school meals. And now, of course, he's a footballer earning hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds a week, being one of the greatest footballers in the country. And what he did was he stood up and he said that in these really difficult times we're in, the government has got to be able to make sure they help people on preschool meals, and they've got to do a really good job for them, especially over the holidays as well. I think it's great to hear that there are people who are still standing up for their beliefs, and who are going to say, well, from my experience of what happened to me, I want to make the whole country change. And he got hundreds of thousands of people to support him, and the Prime Minister had to change his mind and to make sure that free school meals would continue through the summer holidays. And I think that's equally wonderful, and it sort of follows on in the tradition of St Alban, doesn't it? Standing up for what you believe in. God, our strength and Redeemer, whose church was strengthened by the faith of Alban, bind us together that our lives may proclaim your glory. Amen. And our hymn this week is going to be Majesty, Worship His Majesty. I think it's one that you know. Don't worry if it's not, just join in anyway. It's quite easy. And see you next week. Bye.